Yeah, hi, small business owners. It's Harpreet Singh from Sharon Law Firm. So today I want to continue with the same, I think the big topic we are discussing about. It's the AB5 law, which talks about the difference between the employee and independent contractor, and it provides you the method of looking at who is an employee and who is independent contractor. So we have in previous video looked at the ABC test, which is a hard test for an employer to meet. So that's the general test or of AB5 law to determine who is employee independent contractor, and there are certain exemptions which are provided in AB5 law, and this is the one of the videos I like to talk different exemptions different professions have. So in general, there are three ways to get exemption. So one is a general way, which is kind of a blanket exemption from AB5 law, or to say that from ABC test, which provided to certain professional licensees. And I will discuss all those licensees. And the second way is to get is through professional service contracts. So certain professions, if they meet certain factors, they can get an exemption that they don't have to follow ABC test to determine the employment status if they meet certain factors. And then there is a third way of business to business contract, which provides that if you are acting as a normal business, then you should get an exemption. You don't have to meet the ABC test, then a less relaxed test compared to ABC test, which is a Baroli test, which we will discuss in next upcoming videos. So there are these three general ways to get the exemption, so to not follow the ABC test. So let's first see about the general kind of a blanket exemption, which is provided to certain professional licensees. And there is a whole list of these, so I will just provide you the names of these licensees, these professions. So first is the licensees from the Department of Insurance. So if you have your insurance broker, so he is generally exempt from the ABC test. The next one is physicians, surgeons, dentists, and veterinarians. So these are people who, because you have to first understand the main purpose of bringing the AB5 law, to provide this more harder test for the employers to meet, so that the people who are in certain professions who can negotiate, who have, I think, certain influence in society to earn a better living. So these professions like physician, surgeon, dentist, veterinarian, so these professionals have, I think, a very good chance of living a very good life in terms of economics. But a professional who doesn't have certain skills like these, they would have a harder time to get a good salary in the society. So what the AB5 law try to address, that the professions which doesn't have a good standing to earn an economic living, in general I'm talking about, I think any profession can make you millionaire. That's not the point. I'm just talking in general and just trying to understand the legislature's, I think, main intent to bring this law is to have certain professional who are on the poverty line or maybe little bit above that. They don't have that leverage to get a good rate in society for their services, either they're providing as independent contractor or employee. So mostly if they are providing those services as independent contractor, so they get harder time to get those rates. So we need to support them by designating them as employee. Why? Because at least they would be able to get those benefits which a normal employee get. Either it's your social security, Medicare, disability insurance if they get disabled. So that's the main intent, and my main purpose is not to discuss the politics behind it or the policy issues. But still, I think the main intent is behind that. If you agree, it's fine. But unfortunately, it's the law of the land now. So our main purpose would be how to deal with that and to place you in a better position, so you don't have, I think, any surprises coming up while you're running your business. So the next professionals are the lawyers, private investigators, accountants, engineers, architects. So these are also professionals who have, I think, good leverage in terms of, I think, getting some good rate for their services in society. And also the stockbrokers and investment advisors, direct salespersons. So when I am talking about direct salesperson, you would be thinking about, okay, means there are like several different direct salespeople, either it's medical professionals and all those other peoples. But the law has provided the direct salesperson would be such a salesperson who is soliciting for the consumer products. So if you are selling a medical, I think, equipment, that's usually not a consumer product. You are basically selling it to medical professionals, to doctors, or the professionals who are related to those professions. So direct salesperson would be anyone who is selling you something, knocking on your door and soliciting to sell certain consumer products, like some kind of a bag or some kind of a magazine or something like that. So those kind of people would get direct exemption from AB5 law. And the next one is the commercial fisherman, newspaper distributor, and I think the newspaper industry, they have fought about this, and I think there have been like many industry. Everyone lobbied to the legislature that they should be excluded from this law. So I think because of that, you are just looking at this extensive list. So these are the professions who get kind of a general direct exemption from AB5 law. Then let's come to the next type of exemption, and the next kind of a way you can get an exemption from. It's the professional service contracts. So with these professions, first I will just, I think, again mention you these professions. In addition to being in this profession, you also need to meet different factors which are mentioned in AB5 law. Then only you would be able to get the benefit of getting an exemption. So in a professional service contract, as its name sounds, so you are in a profession which you are providing some service to your hiring entity or your hiring person. So let me first, I think, read out the profession which are exempt under this way of exemption. So first is marketing. So people, when I talk about marketing, so I'm not talking about people who are doing your Google ads or social or Facebook ads, or they are putting your I think Facebook posts. So I'm not talking about these. So the law has specifically designated the people who are involved in creative work, who are creating or inventing something. It would be a video, or it would be some kind of an art they are creating. So the law has given this exemption to these specific people because it's a very generalized word, marketing, but where the people is generating more, I think, talent in their art, and it's more unique. If you are doing that kind of a work, then you can get an exemption through professional service contract after meeting all the other factors, which I will let you know after I complete different profession lists. So the second one is administrator and human resource professionals. Next is the travel agent services, graphic design, grant writers, fine artists, and enroll agent who are the agent who get license every year to file your taxes. And mostly if you go to any CPA office, they have enroll agent there, or if you're talking about H&R Block, they have enroll agent. Like everyone sitting there is not a CPA. So, so these people can also get an exemption if they can meet all other factors, which I will just talk in a minute. So next is the payment processing agent. So the people you deal with who are providing you these credit card machines, or who are soliciting you to opening an account which can provide you to get credit cards online. So any kind of agent who is in that kind of alignment in his work. So a freelance writer, editor, and newspaper cartoonist. There is also condition for that, and I will not go into, like, there are also fine details about the freelance writer, how many articles they would be submitting, and also there is I think probably an amendment coming up, especially for these, because the journalism industry, they are pushing more towards, I think, because some profession in certain websites, the people provide blogs or they write articles. So those people work at different companies, and some of the people only work at same company. So there is some nuances. I think the legislatures, they don't probably have understood when they have enacted this law. So the industries are coming up with this exemption and lobbying for that. So I think in near future you will see, I think each and every industry will lobby it that we should be exempt, and maybe you can place us somewhere or another. So there are also fine details, so I will not go into it, and probably I think you have to look in further detail if your profession is coming in this list. So you have to, I think, again go through the law or just talk with a legal professional and try to understand if you also meet those certain details or not. So the next one is the license, manicurist, and then barberist and cosmetologist. So these professions also have an exemption. So this is the list of all the professionals which would be able to get the exemption under professional service contract. And now let's see what are the factors which you have to meet to get this exemption, because as I mentioned earlier, you have to meet certain factors, and then only you would be able to actually get an exemption from AB5 law. Or I will not say from AB5 law, but you don't have to meet ABC test. So the first factor, and you have to meet all these factors. Maintaining a business location which may include the individual's residence that's separate from the hiring entity. Again, means what they are trying to do from these factors, and I will just give you the basic theme about it. So they are trying to see you are a legitimate business, acting as a legitimate business and operating as a legitimate business. And I think if you hear this, that you need to have a separate business location, including your residence, obviously I think if you are not an employee, then obviously you are working at some location, either even from your house. You would have some kind of a separate location. And that, I think, meets the logic about having a legitimate business. And the second factor is, has a business license and any required professional license to practice in profession if the work is performed more than 6 months after the section's effective date. So again, the main theme is about that if you are a legitimate business, then you probably would have a business license. Or suppose you are one of these licensees, you are a licensed barber, so you would obviously have that license. Otherwise, you are not a legitimate business. So the next factor is may set or negotiate their own rates for the services performed. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that the main purpose of this AB5 law is to provide people the protection of being an employment status if they are not in certain profession which doesn't have that leverage of negotiating their own rates. So one of the factor, if you have to get the exemption, it's that you you are negotiating your own rates, because an employee doesn't negotiate on their own rates for each and every assignment, because you are just paid hourly. This is the set rate regardless of what assignment you get. But if you are a legitimate business, obviously any kind of order, any kind of service you're providing, you would probably negotiate the rates. Your rates may be set, but at least you are setting the rate that for this particular work I will take $500 or I will take $1,000. So that rate is particularly set. So it again, I think you just see the theme which is just going along. It's just to show that you are a legitimate business. The next factor is may set their own hours outside of project completion dates and reasonable business hours. Again, it sounds like that you have the liberty to set your own hours, and obviously a legitimate business or even a contractor who is an independent contractor set their own hours and set their own rate. And I think if you are not doing that, then it just creates a suspicion that you are not an independent contractor. Let's see the next factor. Customarily performs the same type of work under contract with another hiring entity or holds themselves out to other potential customers as available to perform the same type of work. Again, it goes to the logic. If you have your own business, obviously you would be providing services to different people, not this one hiring person or entity. Because there can be, I think, certain situation you can think about. Maybe a hiring person have hired you for like 2 months and you have certain exclusive contract with him. That can be a situation, but even in that situation, after completion of this assignment, you are open to providing your services to other entities or to other people, as any other legitimate business provides services to other people. So the main purpose here is that to show you in a frame that you are providing services not to just this person, to other people, because usually businesses does that, provide services to like multiple customers. So if suppose your work is kind of that you have some exclusive contract only with this particular person, again, the general, I think, facts about your profession in terms of setting your rate, control, direction, those kind of facts will come into question. Because again, as I mentioned earlier in previous videos, that is a factual inquiry. And when you are doing a factual inquiry, every fact matters. Because it's not a clear situation you are getting into, every side will argue about every fact, and every side will just try to show. You will try to show that you meet all this factor, and the person who is trying to show that he's employee, he will say, oh no, I think you are not meeting this factor because you have this exclusive contract. I am in exclusivity with you. So in that situation, obviously, you will pull other factor to try to give an impression that this is a legitimate business. So the last factor which you have to meet is customary and regularly exercise discretion and independent judgment in performing the services. Again, it's, I think, it matches with the overall theme that any legitimate business will exercise their own discretion, that they will decide that how to work on certain assignment, what would be a particular method, and what would be the time frame, and what tools you will use to meet that assignment deadline or to complete that assignment. So I think the discretion usually is with the independent contractor, because if suppose you hire a plumber, that plumber decides like which tool he will be using or where he will be first reaching, which side of the house he will be first inspecting. Because if you are instructing your plumber, okay, why not you just look at the sink first, or why not you just open this wall and you should just start looking at the pipes. Maybe they are rusted in this wall. So you will not direct your plumber because you have hired that plumber because of his skill. So again, it just comes to that same theme that you have to show that you are running as a legitimate business, and all these factors show that a legitimate business is being operated by this hired person. And again, I think even if you look at ABC test, because ABC test is much more, I think, a limited factor test. And I think the main issue with the ABC test is even if a single factor is met by the employee and the employer is not able to show that the employee doesn't meet all these three factors, then the person is automatically understood as an employee. So that's the problem with the ABC test. With all other tests, and even if you, I think, will look the Baroli test, it's about the factors. It's about that factual inquiry which you will go through and try to see if it seems to be legitimate business or not. So I think so these are a couple of ways. So I will talk in next video about another way where you can get an exemption, which is through business to business contract relationship. It's regardless of like any profession, and that's kind of a catch-all. And I think the profession which are not comes under these two exemptions, the only way left for them is the business to business contract exemption, because in that you just have to meet certain factor, and you will be surprised that there are like several factors which are repeated in to get that exemption. Because again, the thing you have to show that you are running as a legitimate business, and businesses have discretion, their own hours, they can set their own rate, there is not much control and direction provided by the hired person. So again, you will look in that business to business contract relationship that you can get the exemption, and that's like kind of a catch-all. If you belong to any kind of profession which is not on this list, obviously your best bet is to just argue the facts and just try to show that you meet all those factors. So in the next videos, I will just talk about that, and also if suppose even if you are exempt from AB5 law, that means you are not supposed to show that the employee doesn't meet all these three factors of ABC test. So ABC test is on the side, but still the question remains the same. If this person is employee or independent contractor, then there comes this test which is called Baroli test, which is an old test which AB5 tried to replace, but still provided these exemption to go to that particular test. Because that test, you don't have to meet all the factors. That's one of the benefit why it's much more relaxed. It's in compared to ABC test. Again, means you have to see it's a factual inquiry, and still after looking that you can be held that this person is an employee, but still it's compared to ABC test, it's much more on the lenient side to show that. It's somewhat easy to show that because there are factors and no single factor is determinative of the employment status. So I will also discuss about the Baroli test, and also I think we will look in future videos about the general laws about employment. Either it's about overtime, meal and rest breaks, and all other different issues which comes with that. Thanks again for watching these videos, and I think probably these videos are helping you at least in grasping about what's this AB5 law is all about. Thank you.